bop, bop, boo, doo, boo, 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 ba, da, bop. Fish! Under the sea. Under the sea. Can you imagine if that was his voice? Under the sea,
The
King
whole movie.
Dragon.
Oh my gosh.
It's better down there. It's better. Under the sea.
Whoops. Hey, are we live?
We
We're
are live.
Hi there, Tackler. Welcome to Disney Deep Dive, where we look at the history, story, and details of the Disney parks. I'm Leah.
And I'm Stefan. And today we're taking a deep dive into Ariel's Undersea Adventure. So as usual, let's start this off with our personal interactions with this attraction. Where do you start?
Okay, well, first of all, I want to do just a little bit of housekeeping, which is I want to show my shirt, which it says life is, oops, I gotta scoot this way. Yes, life is the bubbles. This is not one of our shirts. It is a Lost Bros Co. shirt. I will link them in the replay of this, but they are fantastic and I love this shirt. But we do have a shirt, and I'm definitely biased because it's our company, Small World Shirts Co. But when Stefan showed me the design for this shirt, which is up right now on the website, I told him, I was like, what do the kids say? Hashtag dead. I was like, this is my favorite.
What did the youth say?
Yeah, I was like, this is my favorite shirt that we have right now.
Ever?
I think ever, maybe. It's really, really good. So yeah, you can definitely go check that out. But we will be having a shirt for every deep dive that we do. We have other shirts as well, but we will have one for every deep dive. So it's kind of exciting.
Yeah. So it's like anytime a Disney movie comes out, there's a McDonald's toy tie-in. It's the same thing.
Although that they lost that contract for a while, but they have it back. So you can go get Lion King toys right now, just so you guys know. All right.
All right. So as I said,
yeah, it's Stefan. Hey,
oh,
Dean.
people are talking. Hello.
All right.
So Ariel's Undersea Adventure.
Okay.
What is your personal experience
Yes.
with the ride?
So I feel that for our childhood, it was really all about the two biggest movies from Disney were The Lion King and The Little Mermaid. So I had a lot of Little Mermaid merch. I was growing up right along with that movie. So I remember having flannel Little Mermaid sheets on my twin bed. I had Little Mermaid Barbie dolls, and I remember getting lots of Little Mermaid stuff. And my best friend growing up, that was her favorite movie. So we played a lot of Little Mermaids. So that was my first just with the film, and of course seeing the film, owning the VHS tape and watching it a lot. I did meet Ariel when I was 11. That was the first time I went to the parks. So I was a little bit older, but I remember meeting her, getting a picture with her. And then the ride, which we're going to get into in a minute, didn't open till much later. But I did ride it at Walt Disney World with our daughter. So that was kind of a full circle moment, getting to meet Ariel with her and then ride the ride with her finally. So that's me.
Well, yes. For me, I did not watch the movie. Well, I watched the movie when I was a kid, maybe once. I knew of it. I knew all of like the details of it, what it was about. It wasn't one I watched over and over and over. We definitely did not have it on VHS. The ride did not exist when we went to Disneyland when I was a kid, so didn't ride on it.
Disney World.
Or Disney World.
Okay.
Moving on. So did not ride on it. And I didn't really even know a whole lot about The Little Mermaid until we had children. And our daughter started watching it, and then I obviously watched it with her and heard it in the background, so I know the audio really well. But that was how I got inducted into the Little Mermaid world. But yeah, I've never been on the ride. In fact, when you guys were on the ride when we were at Disney World, I was busy getting our youngest son's haircut at the barbershop. What is that place called?
Main Street Barber.
Main Street
And
Barber.
it was funny because at the time, we daily vlogged. And so we were vlogging the whole trip, which I'm so glad that we have that footage. But he had the vlog camera because we really wanted our son's first haircut. And I know I could have used my phone or, anything like that. But I have footage of a lot of the rides, and I do not have footage of that ride. So it was funny because when we talked about doing this, I was like, I thought first, I was like, wait, I probably have. And then I was like, no, I don't have any footage.
Nothing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, The Little Mermaid is so awesome. Very colorful. Yes, it is. Definitely colorful, beautiful movie.
Yeah, so we no personal footage of the ride itself, but you've been on it. Our daughter's been on it. I have not been on it. Let's get into the ride. So,
Yes.
The Little Mermaid: Ariel's Undersea Adventure. It is a dark ride attraction located at Disney California Adventure in Paradise Gardens Park. It is based on, of course, the 1989 movie The Little Mermaid, and it opened June 3rd of 2011.
That's right, Matthew. He says, "You've never ridden Little Mermaid? That settles it. Time for another trip." Yes,
Obviously,
you've convinced us.
Oh,
Yes.
it took so much.
Does McKinnon like it? I want to know. That's their daughter. Sierra and Matthew have a great vlog channel, and they are annual pass holders, so they have a lot of really fun footage of the parks.
Yes,
and
check
their
them
little
out.
toddler is super sweet.
Check it out.
Yeah.
There is another version of the ride at Walt Disney World. It's called Under the Sea: Journey of the Little Mermaid, which is the one you would have ridden.
Yeah.
And that opened December 6th, 2012. So getting into how this came about.
Yes. So when the movie came out in 89 and then the early 90s, it was a mega success, super, super popular. And there were lots of little 90s kids like me who wanted all the Little Mermaid they could get. So they initially started planning for a ride, and I want to make sure I get the name right. So Imagineer Tony Baxter went straight into designing and coming up with concepts for a ride. So he's best known for his work on, I have it written down because it's a lot of big stuff. So Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, Star Tours, Splash Mountain, Indiana Joe's Adventure, and Journey into Imagination. So big stuff. So this is a big guy. He was also the former vice president of creative development at Walt Disney Imagineering. So it was in the works to happen right when the movie came out, right at the height of the popularity, but then it didn't happen until 2011 and 2012. Why?
Well, we will get into that. So Tony Baxter, obviously, he's cut his teeth on all these large rides.
Yeah.
He knows what he's doing. He's experienced. He can make a theme park ride, which is very interesting because when you look at the initial concept, it was a cavalcade of horrors and nightmare fuel. It heavily featured the animatronic versions of the scariest moments from the film. It was just terrifying, horribly terrifying. When Tony was interviewed about the original idea that he had come up with, he said that he was trying to immerse guests into the best scenes of the movie. And it was in order to be honest to the emotions and feelings of the story, which I can understand. You're trying to put people in the moment in the movie, feeling in the ride what you feel in the movie.
Yeah.
But I think I would have only felt terror because a lot of what they had designed was horrifying.
And you can see computer animated of it, so like a simulation basically, on YouTube. And it was included in the Platinum Edition of the Little Mermaid DVD, which came out in 2006. So you can see an idea of what this was to look like, but it was pretty interesting because, you think of the movie and like we were saying, it's just bright and colorful and such a classic. But if you just chop together the scary moments, Ursula's pretty horrifying. Poor Unfortunate Souls is no joke, so if it's a whole ride based on that, it's quite scary.
So if you look at this initial concept, and like we said, it's on the DVD. If you have that version from 2006, you can watch it on there. It's also on YouTube. That's where I watched it. And it's on a lot of websites too. They stream it from there. But what it is it starts off, it's all computer generated with some like cartoons, and it's like an idea of like, oh, here's what the ride's going to look like. And it starts off like fun, like kind of like how the ride is now. You get in the clams and you're about to like go on your adventure, whatever, happy songs are playing. And then you crash through these like broken wood doors and you are immediately into this like spooky, creepy, like ship graveyard.
Yeah.
It's dark and there's like thunder and lightning and fog. And it's like, oh, okay, I guess, what is this? And then it kind of cheers up a little bit, like things kind of brighten up and there's like some happier scenes. Then you go down into the under the sea scene, like a lot like how it is today, like fish and people dancing, mer people dancing around and stuff.
Those people, yeah.
And the songs playing. Then you you come up to the entrance of Ursula's lair, and it's horrifying because it's it's like the sea serpent mouth with the teeth, but it's really like claustrophobic feeling. And you go through this tight tunnel, and it's filled with those mermaid souls, like the little worm,
Yeah.
the creepy like stolen souls. It's filled with them. Like it's a tunnel of lost souls, basically. And you go through that, and they're all looking at you, and it's horrifying. And then you enter, and Ursula's singing, and there's more souls everywhere, and it's still terrifying. And then you leave that area, and you enter the real life experience of the final, well, not the final, but the final battle of the movie, where there's like a giant Ursula, and she's screaming about having all the power of the ocean, and there's ships everywhere breaking, and there's a giant storm, and it's just horrifying. And then it goes into the kiss the girl scene for
Which
some
is
reason,
pretty stark.
which
to
is
go
not sequential,
from-
by the
yeah,
way. It
yeah.
goes out of order of the movie, and then it ends happy. But in the middle, it's just nightmare fuel, and it's horrible.
Yeah. Oh, you thought he'd been on every ride. Yeah, definitely. If you go on it, let us know, because now I want to go. Well, I just want to go to Disneyland in general. I've never been, but I want to go to one in Disneyland because they're very, very similar. If you watch the point of view things, but they have different names, which we're going to get into in a second. But
Yes.
yeah.
So this version of the ride was originally supposed to open at Euro Disney Paris now,
Yeah.
when it first opened. They had a whole section set aside for it to be built in and for it to be set up. And what ended up happening was there were budget cuts. Euro Disney, if you remember, wasn't too popular right when it first opened. There was a lot of criticism and whatnot. So what they ended up deciding was, well, let's put a ride in there that has like a higher capacity, that can move a lot of people in and out, because we need something that's going to pull numbers.
Quick loading. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why it didn't show up at Euro Disney. But why no ride at Disneyland? Because it's a popular movie. You would think they would want an attraction based on one of the most popular movies they had of the time. This isn't confirmed by anything, but based on my research, I would say it probably has something to do with the expansion that was going on in Disneyland at the time. In the mid 90s, Disneyland was going through a giant expansion, growing like by leaps and bounds. They were building new hotels and parking garages, and just a lot of stuff going on. Obviously, a lot of money being pumped into it. And you also have to consider that at the time, the park management, there were two managers. I don't have their names, but they came from a retail background, so their mindset wasn't so much attractions as it was merchandising. So in the mid 90s, Disneyland, it was all about the merchandise, and they were trying to pump that, and that was their main focus. So they weren't so, and a lot of the criticisms at the time were about the park rides and how they they didn't get dilapidated by any sense of the word, but they weren't as well maintained as they had been in the past, and that was a large criticism of the management at the time. So combine all that together, and you get this. It paints a picture of not so keen on new rides and attractions in general, more on the merchandising side. So we're just not going to invest any money in this. So the entire concept got backburnered for over a decade.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to think about. I mean, when the movie came out and was so popular, and then it's almost that you forget that there wasn't, because there's so many attractions and rides based on all those popular movies, or shows if there's not a ride. And there was a Little Mermaid show, but no ride.
Yeah.
There's a ride missing. So.
And when we started researching this, I was surprised to see that it was so recent. And I thought, okay, well, obviously it replaced an old ride or something. But no, this is the only time they've had a Little Mermaid ride. So constructing the ride, once they finally got around to building it, it started with a miniature scale replica. They had mapped it out. They obviously had the idea of what they wanted. And like I said, a lot of the ride through portions, the under the sea and everything, had already been thought up. So they had a loose guideline of what they were going to do. So they built a miniature scale replica of what the ride was going to be. And it gave them an idea of like, okay, how's this thing going to flow? How's this going to work? And then they went from there. So initially, the transportation system, the things that you ride in, it was going to be really similar to Peter Pan's flight. So it was going to be like in a clamshell. And if you watch that video of the initial concept idea, there are clamshells, and they're suspended like on like a guide wire, kind of like a zip line. And you would ride through the ride that way.
Yeah, it's all, like it's hanging as opposed to the kind of
the riding
along.
car.
Yeah.
So the idea was, and again, I didn't find any research on this or anyone like saying specifically this is what it was for, but I think the reason they went with this idea initially is because the idea was that you were going to be dropped under the ocean. So you were going to be kind of like coasting and coasting, coasting, and then suddenly you would just drop under, and that was going to create that sensation of we're going underwater. Eventually, they did abandon this idea and they went with the Omni Mover system.
Yeah, which is popular within the Disney parks.
Yeah, it had existed forever at this point, and ultimately, it was probably the better move. It moves higher volumes of people because unlike a ride that's on a zip line, I don't know what else you call it, but a zip line, you have to load people, lock them in, send them through. The Omni Mover, think like the Haunted Mansion, it's moving the entire time. You hop on.
It's a conveyor belt. It's like when you get in the airport.
When you get to the end, it's still moving. You just hop off while it's moving. So it moves a huge number of people.
Yes.
It also allows way more control over what it is that people can see. Now, I'm not going to get into all the details of the Omni Mover system. That's an episode on its own about like how it works and the benefits. But to sum it up, first of all, it's the perfect ride system for this ride because the thing that you sit in already looks like clamshell. Yep. Like the things in Haunted Mansion look like clamshells. So this was perfect. Now, what that clamshell does is it kind of cuts off your peripheral vision. So they force you to see what they want you to see because the thing can move as well. So what that allows them to do is you can't see behind you, you can't see above you, you can't see on your sides. They can hide projectors, they can hide light systems, things like that. So it doesn't like destroy the illusion of what you're seeing. And they can also manipulate what you see when you see it. So basically the idea is it's supposed to look like a movie, like you're watching a movie instead of riding on a ride.
Yeah, it's really immersive too because when you're on it, like you have that kind of enclosure on your sides, so it's not like when there's someone right in front of you, which can kind of sometimes take away from what you're experiencing, if they're talking or whatever, taking pictures or doing something, or you're just focused on the fact there's also people. So it really keeps you in the zone with the ride, which I think is really fun. But yeah, so the clamshell works out perfect for these rides.
Yeah, exactly. It would already look that way, and then they had already planned on clamshells, and then it just kind of happened to work out. So that was a fun coincidence. So one of the interesting challenges that Imagineers had to overcome initially were the mer people, like the animatronics of the mer people. They and think of it this way. Say, we did Pirates of the Caribbean last week. Pirates, they're just pirates. They're people standing there, and we know how people look when they're standing in normal space. Mer people are underwater. It's a whole different environment, and they are trying to immerse you in that environment and make it seem real or as real as possible around you.
Oh, I love the whole OmniMove design. I feel like the transportation, like all transportation should be OmniMover.
Oh,
yes, everywhere. You mean just at Disney or everywhere? Because I think it should be everywhere. Although I am a walker. I don't think those aren't, you don't just stand there, you walk. Okay. It's supposed to help you walk faster if you're at an airport. That's just.
Oh, you mean on the walking sidewalks?
Yes,
or the moving sidewalks?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and if you walk on them, you feel like you're going super speed, which is super fun. So what the Imagineers did is they worked with the original animators of the film.
Yeah, that's
cool. They met with them, they talked to them, they said, okay, they'll give us some tips, we need some advice here. And one thing they really pulled from them was that the hair of the mer people was animated basically as a separate character from from Ariel, from King Troy, all the mer people. They had to animate their hair separately. So it's like you have the person and then you have their hair that is its own character because it's floating underwater, it's moving around. It's not like regular hair that is just pulled straight down by gravity and it sits there and that's it. So taking that advice, when you first enter the ride and you go into not the grotto, but the under the sea sequence, well, through the grotto, you see the first Ariel animatronic. It is the Ariel, like her face and body and fin and everything, animatronic, and then the hair is its own separate animatronic. So the hair is moving and floating, and it's giving that illusion that it's underwater, moving around, which they'd never done before. Because why would they? They had never tried to simulate being under the water at the time.
Yeah, and I was telling Steph, I was like, oh, that's those memes where it's that Disney gives girls unrealistic hair goal expectations. I'm like, yeah. And
So
she has her very own animatronic. Yeah.
So another challenge that they had to kind of breach with the mer people was the skin. There's not a lot of rides with characters that show as much skin as the mer people show because they're not wearing shirts basically. It's fins
Mhm.
and then just torsos. So they had to come up with a way to create a skinning it sounds weird, but a skinning process that wouldn't look fake because you didn't want just rubber skin that was going to like bend in weird places, like if they bent their
Mhm.
arm or if they moved that would stretch funny or like sag or anything. So they had to create a new skinning process to cover these models to make it look realistic. So they did a lot of different things. They used a lot of different materials to cover the animatronics and uh, make it so that they could achieve the look that they wanted. This is especially true on the Ursula animatronic.
Mhm.
Now, when researching the Ursula animatronic, you can tell when Imagineers are really proud of a particular thing
Yeah.
because every single one of them will like cite the same set of facts over and over and over.
And we're talking over multiple like videos, blogs,
Yeah,
any interview you can find. They're
it's
all
yeah.
repeating
This
this.
is quoted everywhere,
Hmm.
and that is that the Ursula animatronic is very large. It is 7.5 feet tall and 12 feet wide. You know, from tentacle to tentacle, so very large. But it is quoted in every single thing that I can find. The other thing that they quote a lot is the squash and stretch, which as far as I can tell, is an animation term, and it refers to when, like, if you like crunch down and then you like stand up straight, like when you squash down, like everything gets squashed in the middle, and then you like when you sit up really straight, things stretch out and move. Well, while
Like the
researching
Mickey on
for
your
the
shirt.
well, yeah,
Just had him
exactly.
dancing. Yeah.
While researching for the ride, they watched the Ursula scenes over and over and
Hmm.
over again. And what they noticed is that there's a lot of squash and stretch in her character. Now, because of this, they said, okay, well, we want to make it look like that. So
Hmm.
they incorporated not only like the skin on the outside, so that would do that, but also animatronics within the figure that would make it so that it could do that, so that it could squash down, stretch up,
Yep.
move around, and really look like the character from the movie.
And keep in mind, this is a ginormous animatronic too.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, 12 feet
it's
wide. I mean, it's huge, and it has tentacles moving, and there's so much going on. But the little attention to detail like that, they watch it and go, "Oh wow, she really squishes down and then stretches out a little more when she's singing." Like to incorporate that, this is what makes this ride special. Is that
hmm.
there's all these little details that you on the first ride through probably don't even notice.
Yeah.
It goes unnoticed, and maybe it's not till the third or fourth time that you go through it that you're like, oh hey, that her hair is moving, or she's really like she squishes down when she's
Yeah.
moving, and
Now
then
we really both want to ride this because we were talking about
mhm.
that, about how all of the details that they share and like all the stats. But I would too if I made this giant. I keep saying that funny animatronic. There we go. I would be proud of it too. It's like if you're proud of, you run a super great time in a race or you have a baby and like my 9 pound 4 ounce baby. Okay. Like I'm going to keep repeating that
Yeah,
number,
exactly. You want people to know. You
Yeah.
got to know the stats.
Hmm.
Look at what we did. In fact, if you watch any, and this is totally random, but if you watch any uh, interviews with Imagineers talking about Expedition Everest
Oh,
when
gosh.
that was coming out, when they're talking about the Yeti.
Which let us know because we want to do that right at some point, but let us know what other
Yeah,
rides
let
you'd
us
like to
know if you're
see.
interested in that. But they quote how big it is, like how much it weighs, how it's the largest thing they built
Hmm.
in every single interview. Like they were so excited about it.
Proud. Yeah. I think it's
Yeah.
cute. I love it.
So other
Oh.
animatronics, you have the Sebastian animatronic.
Hmm.
This one, now this is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
It is because it's
Go
not
for it.
big.
Yeah.
It's like he's like this big. He's like crab size. Well, bigger than crab. I don't know. That's about crab
But if you
size.
compare, well, yeah, if you compare it to Ursula, and,
Yeah, yeah, like spider crab size. So he's tiny compared to the other ones. But his eyes are very emotive because they have those projectors. Like it's like the projected eyes, like the Mr. Potato Head, which I don't know where that's at. I just remember seeing the video of it. But his eyes are projected, so he can emote so much. So you have the animatronic, but then you have these eyes that are very
expressive.
expressive.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about that is that, I mean, his head is like the size of a tennis ball. Like it's super tiny. So they had to cram all of these like electronics inside of the space. So to be able to miniaturize that was a feat at the time, and it hadn't been done before. Like they hadn't made it that small before. So
Hmm.
the being able to cram that much into this tiny space and make it work that way is super cool. And they pull it off because it looks amazing. Um,
We have another, speaking of numbers, fun stat,
oh
which is
yeah.
that there's 183 characters found in the ride.
Hmm.
And we're not sure if this is updated, which we'll get into in a couple minutes, but
Yeah.
128 of them are in the Under the Sea sequence. So, yeah, if you feel like having some fun when you go there, you can try to count, but you might have to go
Yeah.
through quite a few times. I don't know how you would do that. But there's also 20,000 live and artificial plants,
Hmm.
which that blew my mind. That, I mean, not the artificial plants part so much, but the live plants. And it's more outside the attraction than in
In
the
the queue and
actual, like in the
stuff.
queue. But
Yeah.
still, I'm like, man, I'm really slacking. I don't have any live plants.
Yeah. So there's, I mean, again, the attention to detail, like that many like things just to build this environment up
Yeah.
is just it makes it as immersive as it is because there's just so much added into it.
Hmm.
Now, talking about the queue, some other things they added into that that make it special is when you're walking, if you look down, you'll see that the concrete, like the floor that you're walking on,
Hmm.
has seashells like embedded into it. So you're walking on what it looks like a sandy beach. And that's the entire queue is like you're walking on what is supposed to be, it's hard obviously, but it's supposed to be like you're walking on a sandy beach.
Yeah.
There's also this fun like crab projector type game where you look into certain areas. I read the sign. I don't remember what it says. It says something about like a storm came through and it washed a bunch of garbage up, so we need help getting rid of it. So like as you're walking through the queue, you're supposed to be able to, and I think this is how it plays. If I'm wrong, someone let me know. But I think it's you look in these specific areas and these little crabs show up and there's like garbage sitting there and you point at which one they're supposed to take, like, oh, take the garbage, and then they grab the garbage and then clear it off. I'm pretty sure that's how it's supposed to work. But it's just like a fun thing to do while you're waiting in line. Because,
Yeah.
I imagine this line can get pretty long, so it keeps you busy.
Well, and that's when Haley and I went on it. We had a fast pass. I'm nearly positive because
Hmm.
we didn't wait for very long. And it's funny because we talked about fast passes before, but if you get a fast pass for rides, sometimes you miss the cool cues and the details that they have while you're waiting. So I'm like, ooh, now I kind of want to see that so I can play this game. But they do have it is a beautiful queue, and they have like beautiful scenery as you're going through, and all the plants and all the shells and everything. So it's a good one.
Yeah, like I guess like the rock face that you're walking through.
Hmm.
And this is interesting too, that all of like the rock that you see, it has like a metal frame and then it's like stucco and concrete on top of it. And what they did is they just layered it up. They waited for it to dry to a certain point, and then artisans came in and they carved well, they carved they sculpted like clay the concrete into what they want it to look like. So it's all rock solid. Like you
Yeah.
look at it, you think like, oh, it's like, I mean, not paper mache, but it's like
But it's
fiber.
pretty cool
I
that
would think
it's
like fiberglass or
concrete. Yeah,
something.
I thought for sure it was fiberglass.
But yeah, it's all concrete, so it's all like as solid as can be.
Hmm.
There's also a scuttle animatronic outside.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of words to
Yeah.
say, I guess.
He's sort of like the narrator. I mean, he's like the crazy. What was it we said he was? He's like the.
Oh,
Oh
what
my
did we
gosh.
say? He's the
Oh, he's got.
he has a bunch of unearned
Yes, unearned
confidence.
confidence. That's it. That's Scuttle. But I love him.
But he does. I mean, you see him in the queue, and he is the one who tells the story throughout, which
Hmm.
is why you only see as you go through, you only see like the main points of the story because he's saying like, now here's how it happened, and then at the end of it, he's like, at least that's how I remember it. So he's telling you the story throughout the entire
Yeah,
ride.
but I love that because it's like that's like he's telling her all about like the dingle hopper, which is actually of course a fork, but it's
Hmm.
just funny because it's like, oh no, he's sure what it is.
He's
So
saying it with such
he
blind
knows. Yeah,
confidence.
he's gonna let her know.
When you first get into the ride, you'll notice there's a big mural along, like when you're loading onto the clams, there's a big mural along the entire wall. That was done by Larry Nicolai. He was the creative director of the ride. He hand painted the original version of it. And then he art directed the setup and the painting of the actual mural along the entire wall. It took, I think I heard one of the Imagineers say it took like 3 weeks to paint the whole thing. But it's 86 and a half feet long. And it is one of the first hand painted character murals that they've had since the Fantasyland expansion in 1983.
Yeah. So, I mean, by the time they did that, it was about 30 years. I mean, somewhere close to that. Not doing the math right now. But yeah, 83. And then that would have been 2000. Well, I don't know when they would have done it, but 2011-ish.
Yeah, almost
somewhere.
30 years.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. All right.
So the final version of the ride, it hits all the major story points, like we said. The Ursula portion of the ride, it's more fun than scary. Like you go through, it doesn't have all the creepy soul things looking at you. It's just she's singing the song, and the animatronic looks really cool.
Right.
And it's more bright and just like, I wouldn't say cheery, but it's a fun thing.
Her character does have comic elements. I mean, she's she can be very scary. Like Four Unfortunate Souls is scary, but she does have, I mean, just her whole look and everything, it can be funny.
Yeah, there's fun parts to it, and they accentuate that for sure.
Yeah.
Flotsam and Jetsam are still there, and they're still creepy. There's nothing
I kind of love them, but
they're so creepy.
They are really creepy.
Like they're just creepy. And so overall, the ride, it's what they end up with is it's fun for children, it's fun for adults, it's fun for everyone. It's not terrifying. So they hit a very happy medium. And one other thing, the Ursula is defeated. The thing that in the original ride was going to be this giant horrifying scene is pushed off to the back as you're like going through the end of the ride. There's like kind of a back portion where you see the big Ursula and like lightning and stuff, and it's like, oh, we beat her.
But it's more the happy ending.
Yeah, but all the other stuff like supersedes it. So like it's there as part of the story, but it's like, okay, well, we're just gonna go past that anyway. It's there because it's part of the story. That's about it. So moving into the music and the voices. Not as much to talk about on this ride as maybe others, because if you've ridden it before, you know that the songs are the songs from the movie.
Yes.
So Danny Trube, he is an American orchestrator. He's best known for his work on Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Newsies, The Lion King.
Nothing you've seen,
Pocahontas, Hercules, Enchanted, Tangled, just a few.
Yeah.
He adapted Alan Menken's original songs for the ride. And now this is a part where I was a little unsure on the facts, because some things that I read said that for the Under the Sea, for anything where Sebastian is talking or singing, that the voice was dubbed by the voice actor that they got to do the ride. And then there were other interviews with Imagineers that I saw that said that it's straight from the soundtrack. So
yeah, there's some conflicting stuff there.
Yeah.
And it can be tricky because, and Steph's really good at finding this stuff, but I mean, most of the stuff, but sometimes you get in these deep dives and,
you get a lot of facts, and it's like, I don't know what's right, what's wrong. And I don't have like a go-to final say. So it could be that it's straight from the soundtrack. It could be that it was dubbed. But either way, it's the songs from the movie. So there wasn't a lot of original writing going on, because they want you to hear all the songs that you know and love. That being said, Danny did create a lot of new music for the ride, which you can find in the loading area. So when you're getting on the ride initially, some of the transitional cues when you're going through the ride from scene to scene, he wrote. And there's a whole new arrangement that he did for the big finale and the whole end scene.
Yep. And then some of the original voice, Jodie Benson, came and reprised her role, and Pat Carroll as Ursula. So they were able to get some of the original fabulous people.
Yeah, so when you hear the voices, it's not like, oh, okay, well,
that's not
her. That's not the Ariel I know, or that's not the Ursula I know. It's the actual voice actor, so that's really cool.
Yeah.
They didn't have the same luck in other areas. Flotsam and Jetsam, for example, that was done by Corey Burton instead of Patty Edwards, who did the original voice. She passed away in 1999. Scuttle, which I'm sure you know, was done by Buddy Hackett. Oh, yeah. He passed away in 2003, so a man named Chris Edgerly came in and did the voice for Scuttle. And then this one is confusing because Samuel Wright did the voice of Sebastian. He's still around, still working as far as I know. but they did not have him do the voice for the ride.
Yeah.
And to make it even more confusing, I found two names credited to the voice of Sebastian. One is Keith Ferguson, and the other is Philip Lawrence. I found it in multiple places, so I'm not sure, but it seems like the one that is credited the most is Keith Ferguson doing the voice. But I don't know why they didn't just go with the original voice actor.
Right. Well, I mean, he could have been under some kind of, not necessarily contract, but like maybe he was on a different project or, something like that.
Yeah,
But
it could be doing a different project that didn't allow him to do anything else at the time. Maybe. I'm sure it can get complicated. I'm not a voice actor. I don't know.
oh, yes,
But
for our kids.
but he didn't do the voice, so it went to someone else. And I mean, from what I've heard, it's pretty close. So it sounds pretty good. So that is the ride itself. The construction, the elements, the music, the voices, all of it. That is the ride that we have today.
Yep.
What you may be wondering is, why are there different names? That's what I was wondering.
Yes.
They're basically identical,
Yeah.
both rides. They're built concurrently to each other. The one in California Adventure was started, and then like a year or two later, they started working on the one in Walt Disney World. So why do they name them different things? It really doesn't make a lot of sense. The best I can figure is in 2009 at the D23 convention, they unveiled plans for the Walt Disney version of the ride. And from what I've read, I haven't seen the plans, but from what I read at the time, they look substantially different from the California Adventure
Yep.
ride. So I'm guessing that because they initially thought it was going to look different and be different, they were going to call it something else. Then for whatever reason, it ended up being the same ride. And I mean, maybe they just already had the sign or something. I
Right.
don't know.
Yeah. And it's interesting. You can do too. You can watch on YouTube. There are videos that show
Yeah,
the
like a
point of
side by
view.
side
Mhm.
of the Disneyland and Disney World, and it's the same ride. It's the same exact ride. So there's not any difference that I know. I mean, not
Yeah.
any significant difference that I noticed.
Yeah, if you've ridden both and you're watching this or the replay, let us know, and let us know if you notice differences or which you prefer. That would be
Or if you were
interesting.
at D23 in 2009 and saw the
Yeah.
plans, let us know what
Really
you
let us
saw.
know. We want to talk to you. Yeah.
Give us the details. So yeah, it's still a mystery. I couldn't find anything that said why it's a different name. It just is.
Just is.
Yeah.
But it is confusing because last week when we talked about Pirates of the Caribbean, which you can watch the replay if you'd like to, so a little shameless plug there. But Gigi, who was watching live, she loves The Little Mermaid. She loves mermaids, and she had asked us to look into this. And it was funny because we were talking about it, and then kind of just doing a little research, quick thumb research with our phones, and we were like, wait a second. They're two different, and it got very confusing. And then we quickly figured out, of course, okay, no, there's two different names for basically the same ride, but it's kind of interesting.
So, updates and refurbishments. These are inevitable in any ride, and this one is no exception, even though it's pretty new. In March of 2014, the ride at California Adventure was closed for a couple of months for repairs and refurbishments. When it was reopened, it included a new sea creature, new sea creatures, so new fish, new octopuses, new plants, octopi, new creatures throughout, lots more, which is why earlier when we said that there were 183 creatures or models throughout the entire ride, not sure if that is the updated number or the old number. So it's possible that there are more than that,
yes,
but that's the number we found, and we're sticking with it. So but they did add more fish and things throughout. There is a view of King Triton's castle when you're going into the under the sea section. Like and also we should mention this. It's really cool how when you go down, when you're going underwater, they have you kind of go down a little slope, and then they have like the bubble projection go over you and the water over top, and they hit you with a blast of cold air.
That's one of my favorite things that Disney does, and they do it so well. I mean, obviously Soarin' or something like that is a great example of it. But how they really immerse your senses, and it really does feel, especially because they wanted, do the cabling system at first.
Yeah, so
they
you get
didn't
that
do
drop.
that, but you still get that feel because of the cool air.
Yeah.
And I remember that from going on the ride, the cool air part.
They still manage to pull it off, even though you don't have that sudden like drop down. Yeah. So it's not like in your stomach, but you feel everything else. So it's like, oh, we're going somewhere new.
Yeah, it's very cool.
So the King Triton's castle, when you go into the end of the sea scene. It's just like a small painting on the wall that it was added, so you see it's like lit up. The under the sea scene, that entire scene was given a blacklight treatment. So before it was just brightly colored fish models with lights on them. Now there are black lights on them, so they all glow. So it's like you're under the ocean.
Yeah, and I think Dean had asked that earlier as well. If it was, and it's super bright and colorful, and it's really cool.
Yeah, and this just adds to it. Yeah, it just adds to all the colors because it's all blacklight colors now. So it makes it look. It has a whole another element to it. And then the other thing that
wear a white shirt, it's really bright.
The other thing we got was the Ariel and Prince Eric figures at the end in the Kiss the Girl scene and at the very end. They instead of they had like sculpted like hard like plastic looking hair. It was replaced with realistic hair, so it just adds another little element to the whole attraction.
Yeah.
Now, one thing we don't know is because this opened those were added in 2014, and like we said in the beginning, the Walt Disney World ride was opened in 2012. So we don't know if the Walt Disney World ride got the same upgrades.
I think that and please correct me, Matthew, if you're still on here, you might know, but I think that it was made with black lights originally, I think, because I'm pretty sure that's what it has. So yeah, I believe so.
I saw, because I did see a POV and it looked like there were black lights like on the characters and everything. So it looked like that's what it was, but I didn't find anything about a refurbishment on that ride.
Right.
So,
which it's pretty, I mean, it just depends on the ride, but they do refurbishments. Of course, they do updates and maintenance, but it's a pretty new ride. I mean, to 2012, it's 2019, so maybe due kind of soon, but not, I mean, really for a big refurbishment, unless there was something like that they wanted to change. But
yeah, so I don't know. I mean, if it was added on, if someone knows, let us know, please, because it's a nice little fact that we would like to.
We gotta know. We want to know.
Wrangled. Let's see. Oh, and this other thing that I don't have a whole lot of details on, but it's something that I noticed is at one point, the second Ariel animatronic that you see during the Under the Sea scene, her hair was like, you know that scene in the movie when the fish comes swimming up around and it makes her hair like an ice cream cone?
Yeah.
That animatronic, the one that's like up straight, like moving around, had that hair, had the swirly hair. But in all the current ride-throughs that I see, the hair is just the regular flat, like, floating hair. And it has the separate animatronic in it, so it's like floating around. But I don't know when they changed it or why they changed it. So I could not find anything about that. So it wasn't updated at some point. I don't know why, but they did it. So there are videos that you can see where it was the old way, but now it seems to be the
with her unrealistic.
Yes.
It's like the scene where she gets up with the rock, and it's just, if it was really you in a bathing suit, your hair would just be like all wet and all over your face. Or like Pocahontas, her hair's just
in the wind.
Like in the wind, really, it'd be like all in your face and your lip gloss or lipstick or whatever you had going on.
Which, random aside, is my favorite part of Ralph Breaks the Internet. How her hair, she constantly has wind blowing in her, so her hair is always flowing, and that's like her power at the end is like wind.
Can go on a total tangent on that scene. I love that scene. And we don't have them yet, but I really want to get, kind of for Haley, but kind of for me, I want to get all the Barbie of the princesses.
In the sleepwear?
Yes, in the sleepwear. Especially because Aurora is my girl, and it makes so much sense for Sleeping Beauty to be in PJs. But that's we're getting off topic
and
here.
And Cinderella with ears.
Yes. And Haley, actually, we talk about my Barbies. Haley has multiple Ariel Barbies also.
That's true.
Yeah, she's got a lot of Disney Barbies.
Well, speaking of fun facts, here's the fun fact lightning round.
Oh, yeah. All right.
So, if you're familiar with 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, or if you're a fan, you're going to really like this section because there's a lot of random 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea fun facts involved with this ride. So, first one. According to Disney, before the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea ride was dismantled, Imagineers saved some of the water from the ride, and they saved it for 18 years, which sounds disgusting.
Well, Yeah, we could. Okay,
I mean,
continue on. Go ahead.
it's ride water. Like I don't know. Maybe there's a filtration process. Maybe there's something they do to keep it pure. I don't know. But to me, I think about it. I'm like, that's gross because it just sits there.
Now, I mean, is there? Did you see a picture of it? I mean, was it like?
No, I didn't look up
Was
any
it like a
pictures
little,
of it.
like like when you get holy water or something, or was it like a
No,
giant
well, no,
bath
no, no.
of
There,
water?
there were no pictures of the water itself. This is just something that someone has said. So this might not even be true. But from what they said, they saved it for 18 years, and then at the dedication ceremony, excuse me, when the ride was opened, they dumped the water into a portion of the ride as like a tribute to
What had
the new
been?
ride and
Yeah.
from what had been. But 18 years of disgusting ride water in a
I
jar
want to know where it
sounds
was.
gross.
Like, was it at someone's house, like on their desk? Was it like at Walt Disney or like Disneyland somewhere?
How
I
many
mean,
times did they dare someone to drink it? Like, so many unknowns. So many things.
there was money involved. I mean, I don't know. Maybe.
So on the same 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea tangent,
Yeah.
when you're going through the queue at one point, and I also
This is cool. Yeah.
I tried to find a picture of it, but I couldn't. I just found like the sentence in a bunch of places, but there is a nautilus carved into the rock at some point as a tribute to 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, like one of the nautilus ride chair things.
Yeah.
It's
People are still looking. That's why you didn't find a picture. No one's
yeah, I
found
don't
it
know where
yet.
it's at, but I found a bunch of people saying it exists, so I just assume it
So
exists.
another challenge for you guys.
Yeah,
Definitely.
go look for that for
Go
us,
find
please.
it. Is that only at Disneyland?
I would imagine it's both because they both have a similar queue, but I'm not sure actually.
It's like a hidden Mickey, but it's a hidden nautilus.
Yeah, it's a hidden nautilus.
Hidden nautilus.
Get out there and find it for us.
Yeah, let us
Send
know.
Instagram us photos.
Please tag us.
The other, well, this is our last fun fact. So at the Disneyland version of the ride, there is when you enter the entrance, there is a King Triton statue on top of the building that is the entrance. That King Triton statue is originally from Triton Gardens, which was like the fountain area meet and greet for Ariel back in the day. It's where Pixie Hollow is now. So if you know where Pixie Hollow is, that's where Triton Gardens used to be. So they had a big like pond fountain area, and that King Triton statue was in the fountain, and the Triton that he holds would squirt water. But they closed that area down, and in typical Imagineer fashion, they don't want to waste anything. So they recycled the statue, plopped it on top of the entrance, and there you go.
Yes, but that's something that we've really been finding, and I mean, it does make sense, but they really recycle a lot of stuff. Like they'll use, I mean, across the board, they'll use things that they had from different rides or different attractions, or if they're switching one attraction to a different place, they'll use they'll somehow connect.
A lot of recycling going on.
Yes, they have to be smart with all that
exactly.
money.
Because these things aren't cheap. So like when one ride closes down, it's like, okay, well, what are we gonna do with these 20 pigs and 4 snakes? Like Indiana Jones needs more snakes. Let's plop them in there, and the pigs can go somewhere else. But they really try to figure out ways to recycle these things and reuse them, which is cool. And I'm sure like as we go on with this, we're gonna learn that there are a lot of rides that have had refurbishments where you're like, oh, why is that there? And it's probably because another ride closed down and they were like, we have nowhere to put this peacock or whatever it is.
What rides? Like, what rides are you talking about?
I don't know. I'm just making up words at this point.
Yeah. Well, and one other interesting thing about this was that the live shows for this were there, which we touched on that a little bit, but there was no ride. It's pretty remarkable, and it's one of those things I hadn't really thought about, but I was like, well, I mean, you can meet Ariel, you can go to her, you can do all that stuff, but there was no ride.
There was the meet and greet, there was the live show that was the sit and watch version of the ride, I guess, because it goes through the story and it tells the same things. But yeah, it just took so long for this ride to show up, which just it's weird. You would think they would want to capitalize on this, especially early on when it was initially being popular and people were getting into it. It's like, I mean, I feel like maybe we're just used to like Disney movie comes out, Disney ride shows up for it so that they can capitalize on the success.
Yeah. Well, and Ariel she is so fun to meet. We love meeting Ariel because you can meet her at different places. So you can meet her, because she's magical and she's able to go back and forth. And so we've met her in her grotto with her fins before, and Haley loves meeting her like that. And Haley loves mermaids. We have had 2 mermaid birthday parties, and we have a friend who is a mermaid, so she's got to have a mermaid at 2 of her parties.
No big deal.
Yeah.
Just the most epic birthday ever.
Yeah. So she's had 2 mermaid cakes, and it was so cute because we were like, oh, Haley, there's a mermaid. And we were talking about Ariel. And she's like, well, it's the second mermaid I've met, because she's, of course, met Ariel. But we met Ariel first. Well, her and I did at the grotto. And I had met Ariel in the grotto when I was little. And then we had breakfast at Cinderella's royal table. And so then we got to see Ariel where she had used her magic. She's with Prince Eric, so she's on her feet. So it's kind of fun. And I like that you can have your kids meet. And one of the dolls Haley has, she has one that, I wish I had it so I could show you guys, but you hold up the doll and she's got her fin on, and then you pull the fin down.
And the fin, you pull something down.
Like the dress part.
Yeah, the fin goes up.
Yeah, that's what it is.
And the dress comes down. That's what. Yeah.
So the dress pulls down, and then her fin goes up. But it's just really fun. So she's a really fun character to meet. And I wonder it'll be a lot different too. And now that the live action's coming out, which of course, there's been a lot of controversy there. But I think that's really exciting. I'm excited to see it. So
yeah, well, shoot, we're probably gonna get a bunch of new maybe refurbs on the ride, because the ride is heavily cartoon, but I mean refurbs on maybe the meet and greets or something. Do they do that? Do they update the meet and greets?
It'll be interesting. I mean, a big famous one that they did, not that recently now, but maybe the past 2 years, year and a half ago, was Jasmine. So she was in the belly, the midriff bearing top. Ariel's hasn't really. She's more covered now as well, which I honestly don't have a problem with it. It doesn't bother me that they're making those changes as long as they keep them.
I mean, the colors are still the same, so
yeah,
it's not a big deal.
The costume.
I mean, I feel bad for the person who's wearing it, because I imagine wearing just the Jasmine tube top was comfortable in the Florida sun, but now you have to wear a full-on shirt.
What, Jasmine that she was wearing?
Yeah. So I mean, I imagine
Jasmine was hot, but now she gets to be more modest if Jasmine has a slice of pizza.
Yeah, exactly. It's she's comfortable being out in the Florida sun in the middle of July. But now she's.
We love you, Jasmine. Rock on. You look beautiful no matter what you wear. Ariel, you too. All right. Well, that was it. Definitely let us know other rides that you would like to see or other attractions, because we've got some ideas. We have some fun ones kind of on our list that we've been researching, but we want to do what you guys like to see as well. So we want to thank the Live Place and Dean, so theliveplace.com, which I will link up for the replay of this, and it is in the description box. But thank you so much. It's a great website. Theliveplace.com has tons of family-friendly Disney content, so definitely check it out. There's some amazing streamers on there. It's a lot of fun, and we really appreciate everybody on there because everyone's just really, really positive attitudes and really awesome. So, and we want to thank you for watching and thank you for participating.
And speaking of participating, if there's a ride or attraction you want to see us cover, go ahead and reach out to us on Instagram.
Yes, I am LeahTackles on Instagram.
And I am at Small World Shirts Co.
Yep, which both of those will be linked as well.
Yes.
All right, so thank you guys so much for watching, and we hope you have a magical day.
See you real soon.
Bye.
Bye.